Welcome back to the Creating One podcast. Closure and why it's not required, but for some reason we desire it. Some contracts require that we give notice. Notice to vacate, notice to terminate, notice to rescind offers, tendering letters of resignation, etc., etc. There are a lot of different situations where closure is required. In order to leave a marriage, you have to go through a divorce legally on paper, separate all these paperworks. In order to be acknowledged by a court or law, it has to be filed. And the closure is the divorce, whether you show up or not. Many contracts require that you go through a formal process to dissolve the relationship. But when you are in relationships that don't require written contracts, you don't need closure. Men, women, you don't need closure. And I know you guys probably thought, oh, this is going to be a male bashing channel. This is going to be, all about the females. Well, you have to realize that I am a female, so very likely females probably by and large are going to navigate to my channel. I have a lot of men though who follow me on social media, so they might, poke their nose around, see what I'm doing, if I'm doing what I said I was going to do, etc. But this channel is for everybody, and I've said this before, it is for everybody. I think everybody can get something out of it. Even if you're a man or a woman, you're a man, you can come over here and find out what women are doing and how women think, how the highest value women think. Then if you are a man who has some content to share, you can get an opportunity to have a conversation with some intelligent women. I have found some really insightful, intelligent men out here with channels. No matter what their complexion is, there are some great men who give a lot. They've learned a lot, and they're putting back. They are paying down their spiritual debt. So let's get back to why you don't need closure. Because people already know. You already know that the relationship is going off course. Sometimes you'll meet people and 30 days, everything is going fine, everything is wonderful, and then you move into certain spaces intimately with them, physically, not actually geographically, but the relationship starts to grow and mature, and the longer you're in a relationship, sometimes it doesn't really matter, because I know people who demand that people tell them, that they're not interested in them within the first 30 days, and it's like, a couple dates, no, I've dated people who I didn't hear from, and I called them to make plans or whatever, see what's going on, because sometimes people get tired of always making a plan. So I've been accused of not being a plan maker, not being interested. Men have often tried to make it seem like I'm not interested because I don't react and respond a certain way according to clearly the type that there's a, that's the number one reason why a lot of men, unless they're really mature men, when I say mature, I mean 65 and up, why they don't, they don't entertain much with me on a serious note is because sometimes people want the easy shot. They want the layup, and that's men and women. I know, because the more time I spend in spaces where men are and pay attention to life, I see men dealing with some of the same issues on a different level, different magnitude. There's a lot of people hurting and in pain, and they really carry a huge spiritual debt with them, because they, instead of dealing with and handling the relationship woes that they had in the previous relationship, they move on. They bring that toxicity, that pain, that baggage, and then load it and pack it on somebody else. And if that person is kind, that person is going to get a lot of baggage dumped on them, and they're going to be zapped of a lot of their good nature if they're not careful. So no, we don't really require closure, because we already know, we already see, So number one, don't give people more expectations than they deserve. You know how you can pretty much tell what kind of relationship you're going to have when a person has a trouble with unforgiveness and how they speak about their previous relationships. That has always been the red flag for me about where it was going to go. Now, my very first relationships when I was a young girl, I didn't find out about the damage because people were real good at masquerading. You know, they smiled and they giggled and they laughed and stuff. So you just thought that, they were just happy people. Then you don't realize that they have they're kind of hiding some pain because a relationship or two that they wanted to manifest didn't work out. So now they start, literally they'll tell you, well, people treated me this way, so that's why I treated you that way, or I treated other people. There are a lot of people that are still broken from really, really old relationships. And they go back further than little Susie or Sammy, who broke their heart and tore up their Valentine in first grade. Sometimes it goes back to their parents. So you got to give people time to unpack. And not unpack to carry, but you want to date people in seasons. Sometimes people, before they know who they really, for that representative, falls off and the real them shows, they will run. They'll find a reason to get out of the relationship so they can go get a reprieve, and then come back. And when I was young, I saw people do this. They come and go from my life. And they will always be around during, certain times of the year. They check in and see what you're doing and convince themselves that you need them when it's actually them. They're the broken spirit. And then once you confront them on that, they run because they realize they've been exposed. And it's not so much they just got exposed, it's just that I was never the person who wanted to hurt people because I already know people I could see the hurt. And you would just hope that, some of your good would rub off on them, but then you start to realize that the more this person is around you, you start to mimic their behavior. They start mistreating you a certain way, and then you end up starting to retaliate. And I just didn't want to be the kind of person who behaved that way. So you let nature, you let God, you let everything get in the way to keep you from becoming a kind of person that you don't like and can't recognize. We don't need closure. We already know who these people are. Closure is not required. Why do we want closure? We don't want closure to end things. We want closure to find out why it didn't work. And why did you waste my time? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? People don't, and I'm a non-confrontational person. People probably from the hood would probably call me a coward, but no. You've already told people what it is that you expect of them. And then when you end the relationship, you're telling them and governing yourself a certain way to show them how you expect them to conduct themselves. And then when they depart from doing what it is expected of them, you remind them that they didn't meet the expectations, thus giving them the closure. You can do that if you want to, if you decide that that's what you want to do. But you don't have to do it, because I used to be the A, the B, the C, the person who laid out the Constitution. Sometimes I would give them the closure or give the last words about something because I didn't really have a foundation. I didn't have a constitution when I first started dating. I had to grow and build one over time. I didn't get to 52 perfect. I had to grow. I had to learn. I had to decide what it is I wanted, what I don't want. And what I didn't want came first. You have to know that closure is not going to always give you what you need to heal you. You're going to have to find a way to heal yourself. And you can't really heal in a space that hurts you. So you have to move on. Moving on is hard, but you can do it. Yeah, there are a lot of men that are holding on to some painful situations, and they're stuck in situations and they want to get out of them, but they can't. And vice versa with women, similar. I mean, I've seen more, because I'm not a person who strives for closure. I've experienced a lot of men who struggle with getting closure from me. And it's not so much closure really that they want. They just want unlimited grace. And I tell people all the time, I'm not Jesus. I never will be Jesus. I am a filthy rag in the eyes of God. You ever heard the name, the phrase, God don't like ugly, ain't crazy about pretty? God is looking at our spirit and our heart. That's all. He don't even see the skin we're in. But he realizes, though, that we're going to need to move back to a place where our complexions are closer, because regionally, we were once a people who were literally in your hand, in the palm of his hand. And then evolution drew us out to the fingertips. And we look different and behave differently due to having to adapt to the environments and the climate change. But now on every continent and planet, you're starting to see more brown people. But getting back to the topic is, you don't need closure. You don't need closure. It's not required. Closure is not required because it's pretty much already there. The evidence, the fruit is already there. You can't make somebody do something. You can't change them. And trust me, I've been on this earth for 52 years. There are people who are coming back into my life to try to convince me that they've matured, but they really haven't. And you can test it. You really can test it without even them knowing. You can literally, there are some people who are so full of themselves that they don't realize that they're revealing who they are, because they've been surrounded by people who accept them as they are, that they really have not had any challenge to that. And they'll poke around and check in. I don't even entertain the calls. They're on block. I'm not, I believe when you really truly want something and you really show yourself that you have changed, it'll be evident in your walk. And you have to realize that it takes you so many years and decades to understand that there's nothing really wrong with you. There's nothing probably really wrong with that other person. They're probably surrounded by people who reinforce that they're wonderful people, but they just don't work for you. It's not about putting blame or whatever. Some people they can be good, but just not good for you. That's the reason why closure is not really required. Sometimes, I always want the best for people. People have not always wanted the best for me. They get angry. I'm grateful, though. I promise you, I don't believe that everybody who didn't get to manifest the relationship or get to use me the way they wanted to use me walked away quietly. I have evidence of people who have tried to harm me professionally, tried to harm me, in my private life, not physical harm, but just try to make life uncomfortable with me. Once dated someone who worked for the city, probably had a lot to do with me getting these tickets for my dumpster, until I went to court and fought it. And then all of a sudden, but I kind of knew, because the person would kind of linger around and, my house and on Saturday mornings and stuff, and just, really didn't expect anything, because I didn't have that kind of energy that presented. I didn't think I literally figured out slowly but surely why people act and behave a certain way. This is why I say people don't need closure, because adults know where they've erred. You're talking about somebody who's 5-10 years older than you, with a child, and dated a lot of women, or men, or woman who has been in a lot of relationships. You already know what you want. And if a person don't meet those expectations, you need to be free to let people go. There is no point of trying to make someone stay who's not going to adapt, adjust, course correct, or whatever. Because one thing that I see women constantly do, they'll lay down the Constitution. I'm not going to sleep with you, and I'm not going to do this with you, blah, blah, blah. And then they end up falling back on that, and they wonder why the men don't respect them anymore. Look, this is not a condemnation against you. I've been judged accordingly as well. I never spoke about something. I learned this early on, and it made me a really great teacher, is that you don't promise to pass out a certain discipline for someone not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then don't follow through, because what you end up doing is you weaken your power. Sometimes it's best to just say, keep it simple and make it easy for people to do well by. And how you do this when you're dealing with adults, because children are different, because But everybody likes to be rewarded. But when a person does not show a reason or justification to be rewarded, they're constantly creating drama in your life. They negate everything that you have to say. They're constantly picking you apart. They don't keep dates. All the reasons and rationales to not marry them. This was one of the young men who wanted to marry me. Literally told one of my friends that we were going to get married, and before I accepted it. We were just having a conversation, and there was no ring, there was none of that. But went off on his own and told my friend that we were going to get married. And I didn't see him as a husband. I saw him as a possibility, but by the time I bought my house and moved, I was almost 30 years old when I got my house, turned 29 on the day of closing my house. By the time I moved out on my own, I was about verifying and validating relationships that were strong enough for marriage contention. There was a young man who I strongly consider marrying, that we had discussed marriage 5-10 years earlier but I realized that he had reached a point where he was comfortable being single. And sometimes people they don't even want you, they just don't want anybody else to have you. Their ego takes a pounding and they just can't handle seeing you move on. And then they build up a spiritual debt. Because if we've never been engaged, I'm not your wife, I didn't cheat on you. You don't get to interfere. And it's not like the person that was entertaining was best friend, wasn't even a relative. You don't even like the person. You constantly down them. So why does it matter to you if we're having conversations or entertaining the possibility? It didn't manifest because of very much things that you said to the person, but you don't hold all the blame. Point is that sometimes people just don't need or deserve closure. So why do you feel like you need to give them closure? Sometimes people know exactly what they're going to do. Here's a young man who, really nice guy, and just a great guy, and the relationship would have never been shelved and put in the freezer, and I would have never probably entertained marrying another person while in the relationship, in the knowing of him. But he just wouldn't pull the trigger. I like men who lead, who profess their love. He was a great provider, and always thoughtful, but clear and evident that he did not want to be married to anyone. But he couldn't say that. He wouldn't say that. And he could have freed us both. But every time he got an opportunity, he was always trying to make people who were close to me think that it was me. She'd rather let her watch her grass grow. She likes to watch. Anytime I found things to do or naturally reverted back to spaces where I was comfortable, like with creating, watching movies, writing, reading, doing the things that individual people, going to school. These things annoy people when they're bored and they want your time and your attention. But when their docket is full, you don't even come into their thoughts. He wasn't a bad person. He just was not a purposeful person. He did not show that he wanted a relationship. That's how I ended up with a fiance. Because this person, and it had great bones, great foundation for being a good husband and a good father. But he just wouldn't pull the trigger. He wanted things to accidentally happen. And the dice in life are loaded, and they're not loaded for you to win, especially when you do things out of the order of things. And I'm not the kind of person who entertains stressing myself out, buying a skirt that I know won't fit, thinking that I'm going to get back to that size. Look, I'm a 12. I'm not 12, 14. There's no way in the world I'm going to be back in a 3/4 skirt. I don't care how cute that skirt is or how cute I looked in the picture. I look at my face. I look at everything about my body. I am a woman. I'm not a young girl anymore. I'm not 17, 18 years old. And not only did my body mature, but my mind and my spirit matured. So I knew by the time I had made that prayer to God to bring me the love of my life, and he gave me instructions in his word on what I needed to do. Forgive people who have trespassed against you. It's in the Lord's Prayer. And God would be with me through all times. And when I got my fiance, even though God saw fit to call him home, the point is that I asked God to show me what love looks like, and he did. So I became more wise about what it was I wanted. I entertained a lot of people, but once they showed me who they were, that's it. You're done. And I don't have to call somebody up and tell them I break up with you. People will learn and pay attention. You, whatever it is that they do or how they behave, if a person doesn't call you, good. Use that time to move on. If a person decides to get married, move away, I'm going to find a job someplace else, whatever. Use those gaps to move on. Because with an employer, if you're out for, I remember my employer, if you were out for 2 weeks, you had to go see the employer doctor to come back to work. You had to get like a gold star on your report card that says that you were physically and mentally ready to return back to work. If you had a mental health issue, you had to go to see a counselor. You had to go to see a counselor approved by the board. So no, 2 weeks, no show, no call, you're automatically terminated, babes. And you know, people think I'm so hard. I've had people say to me, don't you worry what people think? No, I'm not worried about what people think. Do people, let me tell you, if there were a collection of people who paid my bills, put me through school, no, I have the student loan debt to prove that I have financed with the help of the government to educate myself. My houses that I have purchased had no co-signers. The cars that I purchased, no co-signers. The leases that I have undersigned, no co-signers. I wish that there were people in my life who I could give credit to other than my parents, friends with wisdom. Words are wonderful, but there has been no one who has put themselves through the contract process with me for me to feel like they should be rewarded with some kind of closure. We have no contracts with each other. And I have said, though, in my next relationships that I will probably try to get people to have contract conversations. If they don't want to, that's fine, but we don't have to have necessary closure, but I don't want to waste people's time. Sometimes you meet people and they're just the most attractive and the most beautiful on the surface, but then you find out their spirit vexes you. You might be a centrist voter, and there might be an extreme fringe party person. Or you might figure out that, they don't have really regular bathing habit. They don't like to, keep communication with you. According to my love languages quiz, a person does not have to spend a lot of time with me. They do have to spend quality time. A person does not have to, always give me words of affirmation, because I've affirmed myself. But they just need to be a person who shows their love. Showing love is not words. Showing love is action. Checking on you, making sure. I don't know what kind of man thinks that he can show a woman love by not worried about how she gets home. What kind of man proves that he can provide for a woman when she needs a fraction, $67 or $70 or whatever for her administrative fee for a test to get into a university, but you can brag and talk about how many drinks you buy women you don't know to impress another man or make another man feel embarrassed in front of his woman. I mean, who does this kind of stuff? Or let's switch to women. What kind of woman tells a man that she's not going to sleep with him, and then she sleeps with him and then expects him to still see her in the same light? What kind of woman sees how other women are being treated and think that they're going to be treated better? What kind of woman knows a man is in a relationship and thinks that she's got the juice, or listens to a man telling her that he's only slept with a woman 2 times because there's 2 children, and saying, well, he said, and believing that? There's nothing wrong with believing what a man says. There's nothing wrong with believing in your woman. But realistically, you just can't. Do you really believe? Because at the end of the day, we are responsible for the situations that we're in. I have not met a single person who has put themselves into a toxic situation and did not see the evidence in the fruit before they got in there. It just naturally is. And I know that people like to say, well, what's so obvious for you isn't obvious for other people. No, that's not true. These people see it, but they don't want to see it because they want the man, they want the woman so very badly. They're attracted to the physical form. Or for women, it's not so much sometimes the physical form, but they're attracted to the desire to have someone warm next to them. People can be in relationships with you or have proximity to you and don't even know who you are. So why would you want to have closure with someone who didn't even spend enough quality time with you to even see how you are different from everybody else? Men have a very bad habit of saying all women are the same. And I will promise you, I have met men and I've dated all kinds of men, races and everything, and I've never met one the same. Some with similarities. But if they were felt letters and I tossed them on a scatter plot, some would stick together and some would be scattered in different locations and places. I've never seen men all the same. And I literally tell you the truth, I dated different men so that I could see what there was out there to offer. And I figured it out. That doesn't mean I'm going to get it, but it does mean I'm not going to settle for less than that. And it angers men, just like I know it angers women. When men don't, when they see things not go the way they want, or they want to try to make something what it is they want and it doesn't pan out, it angers people. When they can't, men get upset when they can't access the women they want. Women get upset when they can't access the men they want. And at the end of the day, I don't really care. I don't care about Black women dating white men, Asian men, Latino men, and I don't care about Black men dating interracially either. Because I think that life is just at 52, life is way too short for people to not be happy in love. Because if I've said this before, whatever it takes to for me to move out of your way to get you happy faster, I want that for you. I've seen too many people regret decisions and choices that they could have made because they settled. I want you to be happy. I earnestly pray that you are happy. And I celebrate love, no matter what shade or color or how it's made up. I celebrate love. And 10, 20, 25, 30 years. Come on now, you can't say that ain't love. That's some kind of respect, some kind of way. People can't stay in relationships like that for that long unless there's some compromise, some respect. Yeah, those ooey gooey feelings sometimes fade, but those feelings can come back. But you're on the same page. I mean, that is masterful. I have been in relationships with people that I didn't even live with, and I couldn't be in a relationship with them that long. You're talking about people who've lived together, raised children. Those children are grown now, making their own children. Beautiful thing to celebrate. That's what you will find over here at Creating One _C 1999. You're going to see the celebration of love and life. As the saying, the beauty of creating spiritual, physical, and financial wellness. God wants you to prosper as your soul prospers. You are not meant to have lack. You get not because you ask not. Whatever you ask in the Father's name shall be yours. He can do abundantly above what you can think or ask. Yes, God wants you to be prosperous in all things, but you have to be careful what you ask for, because God don't want you standing on someone else's head to get your reward. You will be building and attracting spiritual debt and demons into your life. And don't think because, oh, you bore children, your children are going to bear children. Trust me. I think that a lot of reasons why some of us don't, we keep encountering certain things is because our parents are carrying and we are inheriting their spiritual debt. So I promise you that it is very necessary, extremely necessary, that you not seek out closure when you already know. So here's what I suggest you do. When you meet someone, first of all, you need to journal what it is that you want. If you don't know what you want, then you need to spend some time around people. These are for my younger folks. Figure out what it is that you want out of relationships. What is it that you need? What do you think is going to make you happy, content, bring you peace in your life? Sometimes when you're young, you don't really know, so you got to experience some things. But I want you to have an idea. I don't care if your idea is to have a Hallmark relationship. Write it down. You got to have a starting point. I used to love Harlequin romances when I was a young girl. I am a hopeless romantic, but I have purchased picnic baskets that have never been used except by me. I have planned dates for myself to go to theaters, I've had relationships that those things, happen through. But if I had to wait for somebody to take me on a trip, to move me, to buy a house, a car, to buy myself flowers, send myself cookies, whatever it is, I would be missing out on so much life. And you're not going to attract a man or attract a woman by thinking that if you hold yourself back from, self-love, that they're going to just clamor to. People come into your life when they see a shortage and they try to fill it. There are very few people out here walking around whole, healthy, and working on themselves. I was in a chat room, a chat space the other day in the chat section, and a person came into the chat section, and I found out they were 40-something years old and seeking a wife, but comes into spaces where majority women are and don't bother paying attention to them and doesn't realize how unattractive that is. And I've seen this person around YouTube making comments in sections and saying certain things. And it's like, oh, goodness, is this a baby Christian? Is this a person who... And again, you want closure from people who don't even bother paying any attention to what you... These people end up in relationships too. They don't hear any other voice but themselves. I have friends who spent a lot of time in relationships because they were married, they respected marriage, they didn't believe in divorce, they had children, they wanted these relationships to be long and be lifelong, and been in relationships with people who don't even value their opinion. Men telling me that they got women who nag them. I was doing very fine, having a small amount of friends on Facebook, and then come out of Lent season and just said, okay, I'm going to accept this one person as a friend who I don't know, looks very strange and suspicious. And he asked me to be a sugar baby for a certain fee every month, pay me for my time. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness. And I thought when I said, oh, no, thank you, just respectfully decline. You want to know why? Most funniest thing, I'll talk about that in a later video, but I met a person who was about to get married and move out west, and I'm pretty sure I thought they were getting married. It seemed like it was a very beautiful person, both of them beautiful, adults with grown children. But I get an impression that something happened. But prior to that feeling that something happened, the person came into my box and my, message box, my DMs, and thanked me for the kind words and the prayers and all the things that I was posting. And and love him, because I was congratulating this person because, he's on his way to getting married. And, I just love it when I see, young men getting married and marrying the love of their lives. And, I want people to be happy, because I think if the more people that are happy, the better the world will be. We're dealing with a lot of toxic, unhappy energy because there are a lot of people not where they want to be, not manifesting the love they feel they deserve. And it's just a really sick cesspool space to be in. But something that he said that really stuck out to me, and I'm starting to notice this a lot, he said men want purposeful women to be their friends. And these women that they're marrying don't fulfill and check all those boxes. I had a person who interacted with recently, since I've been down here in Alabama, who said, do I believe in platonic relationships with men and women? And I say, yeah, to some degree, but they don't generally work, because the wives, excuse me, or the girlfriends don't agree with it. So what ends up happening is that relationships get, they become real messy situations, because men use these as backdoor opportunities to have sex with women, to build relationships with women, while they marry someone for their physical. And they're doing it a lot with older women. That's why I want older women to be very careful. Young men want wisdom in their lives, because they may not have had a mother or had a fractured relationship with their mother. So they seek wisdom and understanding and stuff. They want to learn from a teacher, but I saw this even in my own relationships with men my age. They like your spirit. You go to church. You're a kind person, but they don't want to date you. And literally said, now I am what you would call a good girl. I'm not, the kind of person who's messy. But they want someone who, they think their friends are going to approve of. Or they don't think that, their mama will approve of you. They don't even really know who their mother is. I found a young man that I was dating found out that his mother invited me over. And I even said to her, well, I think it's better that he be the person who, instigates that interaction, don't you? I said this at 17 years old? 18 years old? She was like, when you coming over for a visit? And I was like, well, when your son invites me over. And the reality is that he did invite me over, but it was to meet his grandmother. And he still married someone else. But he wasn't ready. We weren't ready to get married. It doesn't matter what I saw. He was just not ready. And 10, 20, 30 years, divorced or whatever, he's still not ready. And what's the hardest thing is to see is that sometimes people are never ready. So this desire you want for closure, you never really truly get the closure that you might think that you want or need. Because some people just will never close the book for, on things. So one time he appeared back into my life, and I said, okay, well, you know what? This is either going to be, he wants to pick up where we left off. Pick up where we left off. I don't even remember where we left off. It's been 20 years. You've been married, had children, etc., etc. What are you talking about? You want to pick up where we left off? I don't even remember. What I do remember was messy. So here's the thing. I didn't say this to him. I just said what I said. Pick up where we left off. No, I think that it's best to have a complete dash cleanse and start over. You don't want to start over, because starting over requires work. So the moment he, pitched his campaign to pick up where we left off, I knew that this relationship was going to have a clock. Might as well just set the clock for 5 seconds, because before it gets to 0, it's going to be over. And that's exactly what happened. Because if you want to pick up where you left off, that means you're not acknowledging, you're not trying to, there's a mindset when it comes, when I see couples get married or remarried or come together after years, These people have humbled themselves to their issues and not just saying the words, because some people don't like hearing themselves say, I'm sorry, and then you have to pay for it because, they bore their soul to you and now they feel they feel weak and they got to find a way to get you back. Devil tells them that, they see you as, the person sees you as weak now and you got to get your strength back on them. Sometimes closure is just not necessary. But in this particular situation, I said, well, this is either going to be the beginning or an end. That's why I said we should start over and get to know each other and see each other for who we are. And I said it so sincerely. We didn't want to do that. We want to jump right in like we're in a relationship already. There are people who I've never kissed, been on a date with, who I've known since I was a kid. And I kind of think, the relationship would be different than a traditional relationship where you meet someone in the present. However, when you want to show someone who you are, the best of who you are and what you have to offer, when you have good intentions, you will present yourself in a certain way. You won't try to jump into, some people don't even know what to do when they're not touching you physically or, and I'm glad that those relationships did not manifest because it would have possibly, sometimes it's about timing. Timing can really, hamper relationships when you try to put things out of order. So when someone says or shows you that, you're too much for them, you got to believe it. Because one thing that I know about individuals is that if it's something that they want and something they believe will take, that is who God has called them to be with, especially a man to a woman, the Bible says a man who finds a wife finds a good thing and thus finds favor in the Lord. I hope that we get to a place, this whole thing with Roe v. Wade, I hope that we move past the having the children situation and move back to really making marriage. And this is about me defining what marriage is. This is about people who can bring forth healthy fruit and put healthy people back into the universe. Because I know a lot of people relationships are not built on a man and a woman, and they are doing very well as a village raising good stewards. What I would like to see is something very different than what I actually see. I got to be realistic though out here. People do not need closure. They don't even want to give closure. I know I don't even bother giving closure. I learned, closure is not necessary because people already know what it is that they want. People have moved on, and then you find out they moved on by accident because you stumble into situations where you see them. And I don't call people; they end up calling me. I dated a young man, really nice guy, and he didn't like I said, he didn't like the fact that there was a possibility that I was going to be moving on with one of his associates, and he didn't want a relationship. But boy, when I found out that the young man had told him, which I pretty much knew when he shared that he was really trying to flex, I became the prize in a pissing contest, let's just say, and I put myself there. So I own that. But the reality is that my phone was jumping off the base by the time I got home, and literally asking me what's going on with me in person, M. And I'm like, excuse me? I know you are not calling me asking me this, right? You really, you don't want a relationship. I am 33 years old. I'm done playing the games. What he should have did was given me his blessing and said, you know what? I don't want to get married. I mean, I'd already heard from associates of mine that he's not interested in marriage. He wants to be a career bachelor. But that's not what he says. And this is the problem that men have, and some women too, is that they are different people in relationships than they are with their tribe of women or tribe of men. So women present one way, and then when they're in relationships, they do something totally different. I am the same, and that is the reason why I have such struggles out here, why I have very few friends, and why a lot of men don't approach me. Because I don't have time to be shape shifting or code switching or doing any of these things. I am who I am, and you just deal with it. Because I don't have time. I don't have time to be playing dress up, taking off this hat and putting on another one, turning my dress around, putting on a mask. I don't have time for that. It's so much easier to just be your authentic self. And people say, oh my God, you're so hard, you're so tough. You're right. People I've dated say that. People in my family say the same thing. People, I can naturally just walk into a space or by not saying anything and people feel judged. And it's not a facial feature or any expression or anything I make. It's just sometimes I'm just sitting there listening. I've had friends and family accuse me of passing judgment on them because I didn't say anything. I just sat in silence. Well, sometimes you just got to be silent so you can hear everything. I don't have a vote. Oftentimes, I'm just in listening mode. I don't have enough information. When somebody invites me into a space to listen, I just listen. You do not need closure. People already know who they are and what they're going to offer you. You already know that it isn't working, so why do you need closure? Apologies are fine, but you don't need closure. And you know what? When I was changing my life and making amends for the things I've done, I thought of that person that I dated because I felt like maybe their feelings was hurt because, you know, maybe possibly they were thinking about being, I don't know. I just felt like maybe it had nothing to do with me. It was all about his ego. But I apologized to him. I never got a response or reply. It's been 20 years. Still single, I believe. And no, I didn't have children. And no, I don't ever intend to reunite with that person. That person wasted enough of my time and then got in the way of a potential relationship. Do you see what I mean when I say how you build spiritual debt? If you don't want something, why are you standing in the way? This is why I'm an advocate of people getting out of people's way. When I see relationships aren't working out, I don't crowd a person, pretend I want them, you know, push getting me. I don't do any of those things because you feel it in your spirit if this person is right for you. And if they're not right for you, you let them go. And if they so happen to ask you why sudden, you know, I've had guys I've dated married. Yeah, that's another conversation, ladies. A lot of you out here married to men and you have no idea what these men are saying to friends of who they wish they had said they wish they had chosen. And there are women out here thinking they're winning because they got the husband. Yeah, in some regards you have, but you don't really have the spirit of a person if they keep dipping and sliding into somebody else's DMs, wishing things could be different. So, I mean, literally, they want what they can't have, or they thought that they'd have access to you. And then when they realize that they are not going to have access to you, and then they start to get comfortable and have conversations with you. And hopefully, like I said, you get your closure. I mean, if you approach me in a certain way, you might be able to get closure. Closure in the fact that we have a conversation about who we are, what we were, and how that affected us, you know, and that we can own our ilk. Those are kind of conversations that create real good positive energy and closure. Because the one thing that I don't want is to give a person. And I sat there and listen. This person is married, and they're sitting there negating, and just throwing all kinds of gasoline into the fire and just trying to cause a catastrophic explosion, and on the word that I'm getting ready to get married. I mean, I've been proposed to more times than I can count, but there's really only one person that really got the full proposal actually, you know, came over. I mean, there's many proposals that got declined because they, you know, people think, you know, I'm going to marry you. Okay, now they can do whatever they want to do. They never really made it. But there are men that are, I want ladies and, you know, to know that, and men too, that there are people who make promises and they're on the phone or in somebody's DM. I mean, like I said, there are people who will tear apart and say all kinds of things as if they are angry that someone wants you. And it makes me think they have had a mission to make sure that love didn't manifest in your life. They might have told people who had desire for you, oh, she isn't this and she isn't that. You would not know. And I'm pretty sure men have the same level of receipts. And I would love to hear the stories. Please share. I want to hear the stories of how women have interfered who really didn't want you, messed up and discombobulated your life, but then saw you move on, or the potential move on, even when they're in a relationship with someone else, and just cannot let you move on. I see it all the time. And these are some of the people who say they want closure, demand closure. They want closure. They expect closure from these people. These people are never going to give you closure. They want to have access to you so they can keep making messy in your life. One particular young man literally told me, we had a conversation where he said, if you happen to see me out, and basically laying down the framework, because he wanted to openly date. That's fine. We weren't in a committed relationship. We were just friends. But I always saw him as a strong possibility. And sadly, he didn't even make the top 5. He had to grow up a lot. And this was a young man who had 2 parents in the house with him. So trust me when I tell you, it doesn't matter whether you grow up with your father or grow up with your mother. There are just some people who are messy because, like I said, someone breaks their heart and they can't get over it. So they make other people pay for it. Kind people pay for the mistakes other people make upon them. And it kind of felt really good because it did feel like closure. We came to like an understanding, even though he said some things that made me very in some of the last conversations, especially when he found out I was looking to get married again, that I was potentially engaged again. He was very uncomfortable with the fact, because this was probably the first time he had heard, people see who you are. They don't really see what you were, what you could be. I held him in much higher esteem, obviously, than he held me. He never really said I didn't see any potential in you, but he constantly kept reiterating that, my wife is top shelf and my wife is this and blah, 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 and asked me why I didn't marry him. Why didn't you ask me? First of all, I don't ask men to marry me. And I would say 3 out of the 4 expected that. So you guys that today are in the dating world, if men aren't approaching you and stuff, men haven't been approaching women in a very long time, if they ever really did. Because if they weren't made, it was generally the parents that enforced the marriage. You're not going to keep coming around here dating and trying to court my daughter. What's your intentions? Are they honorable? Men are used to being pushed into marriage. Many of them do not go into this contract on their own. And that's fine if they don't. Getting into marriage and contracts and stuff is very, very tricky. And love and stuff and the good feeling and everything. A lot of people don't even know that that's not really love. Those are emotions. Love is compromise. A lot of people talk about Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith's relationship, but they have a contractual obligation with each other that transfixes anything that we think. And when they're done with that contract, they'll terminate it. But at the end of the day, they haven't been married this long because they still feel the same, quivering feelings they had for each other when they first got together. They're still probably attracted to each other because they're both, to me, in my eyesight, very attractive people. But they've had their ups, they've had their downs, and you guys seen them displayed. They've shared with them. They've told you they have been imperfect people. They've both cheated. They both had agreements. All these different things. Relationships go through all of this. There are no perfect relationships. Everybody has their public announcement, their public demonstration of love, but then when they get into their private space, they have their personal contracts that are not written on paper. Most people know exactly what's going on in their relationship. They know what their husband is doing. They know what their wife is doing. And it's only a problem when somebody else sees it and threatens to expose it. And so at the end of the day, I think it's very, very important that we realize that closure is not necessarily required, but it's a blessing if we get it, because it gives you some understanding. People mature. Even if the closure it doesn't really make you feel better or anything like that, sometimes it comes. Opportunities come for you to get your own closure. It may not be when feelings and emotions are high. Sometimes it comes later, when a person feels like they're going to have access to you. Then you can be able to ask them the questions and things of whatever that you desire to have the answers to, and then you get it and you get your closure. It just automatically seals the contract. It becomes fulfilled. But they would not give you the closure if they thought that you were going to be walking out. I mean, you think, oh, okay, you say what you have to say and you're done. Okay, but as long as people think they have access to you, they don't even know sometimes they're giving you closure. I've said this before. You think you need closure. Sometimes you're getting the closure you want when you're not asking for it. So when you come with the intent to either be a beginning or be closure, you get it. Trust me, you will get the closure that you want, because a person's actions the fruit. I tell you, it's the fruit. They will tell you. They won't say, bye, we're done. But you got to pay attention to the actions. People do not need closure, especially in high stress, when you first break up, you don't want to be bothered with the person anymore, but your feelings are still raw, and you want to, you want to get your answer, you want to get your win on. But years later, you realize that you really didn't. I mean, I had an interaction with one of my friends who demanded closure. And then when she was running, tripping, falling, stumbling into a messy situation, and she just knew was going to just be her everything, I asked her, so you love this person, but what about that person that you demanded closure? Well, I just wanted to have a baby. I wanted to get married. Do you see what I mean when I say women don't really need closure? And we're the most, we are the most biggest campaigners for closure. And that doesn't mean men don't. People generally want closure because they want another opportunity. It's not about the closure. They want an opportunity. So that's why sometimes you have to use the opportunities to get your own closure. Yeah, closure sometimes happens. I never really required a request because I've already made my decision to move on. Sometimes the relationship just is not going to manifest. People are all ooey gooey and everything, and then you find out, like I said, your idiosyncrasies vex each other. You don't need or require closure. Sometimes you get it for yourself. But again, when a person shows you who they are, you really got to believe them, because they aren't the way they are, with just you. Their people are not that clever. You spend enough time around people, trust me, the wife, the husband, they got the same version of you, of that person that you got. They're just dealing with it differently. Very often. Especially if the relationship is rough and ragged. But sometimes people walk away from situations that just don't present well. Like I've said before, there are a lot of women that want to make demands on men to give them what they need and what they want. But these women can't cook. They don't want to cook. They're constantly nagging. They don't really know who they're looking for, a father and a husband, because they don't want to get the closure. They had a messy relationship with their father on various different levels. And they want, they're charging men with abandonment. I mean, and they can't move on. They have struggles with forgiveness. They want, they can't handle seeing their ex living, loving, and manifest, and that is like grating at them. And it's a sad situation to witness, but it's evident. It's very there. So I want to leave you with this. Sometimes you don't get closure immediately. You might get it later. God says in His Word, He'll make your enemies footstools for your feet. Sometimes you'll get. Don't worry about getting revenge and all that stuff. God says, vengeance is mine. But forgive people so that, God can see and open, it's like a stony field. A field that won't grow grass or flowers, nothing further will come from it. It becomes like rock, your heart. So forgive and get your own closure. Get your own closure. You deserve it.